Welcome everyone. Just a brief self-introduction. My name is Wolfgang from Austria. I have two jobs. I'm a management consultant. I'm with colleague Quint Management for Quintessence in German, which means essentials, getting to the essentials. And my second job is I'm working for the Peter Drucker Forum. I don't know whether you've heard about it. It's a big international management conference taking place every year in honor of Peter Drucker. We are called the mini double of management. So I hope this entices you. We're lucky to attract a very international crowd of speakers, and it's not just a management, but in the spirit of Peter Drucker, it's very much embedded into society. So also for people from the public sector, very welcome. Beginning of November this year. Okay, and I'm 2'4". Just if you might have the question, I'm behind this question. That's the answer. I don't know, what do you estimate? Okay, final clue of viability. Yeah, I mean, it fits with the slot of this presentation at the end of the day. I hope you're not too tired. Insofar, it's perhaps good that we just limit it to 45 minutes. So I don't think I get more potential spans from you, and I think you're right in that regard. The program is, but I can entice you. I think it's a bit, correct me, Angela, it's a bit the heretics session on BSM. But I come to the, so it will be, I think, I imagine there will be some new thoughts for you, perspectives. The program is in the title, The Final Clue of Viability. Anyone of you has a clue to what it's an original quote by Stephen Peer. Do you know what it refers to? What's the final clue of viability? It's the anhedonic signal and channel. And I found that very interesting when I came across. I mean, Stephen Peer, he wrote a lot. And then that struck me that he really emphasized that it's the final clue of viability. You know, you go through all these systems, functions, and channels, and then at the end, he says, oh, the real final clue to viability is the anhedonic signal. And if you look at the work, a lot revolves around the anhedonic signal. Although in the literature and how we have the receiver model, how we apply it, the anhedonic channel isn't very prominent. It's an appendix of it. So, and that struck me. So it's the final clue is from the starting point of my thinking process, the journey. That led me at the end to the subtitle. Is it hidden in Dorian Gray's picture? I don't know whether you're aware of. If you can recall what it is about. It's a book. Brilliant book, I think, a very systemic book by Oscar Wilde, where a young dandy has a painting in the attic, and he wants to keep it young and fresh, you know, like we want to be today. And the picture is tasked to take on all the wrinkles and whatever it has. And the very interesting thing about this image is it also shows his morality. So when he is nice, the picture is nice. When he's cruel and he murders anyone, the picture portrays him. So he stays young and fresh, huh? But the picture shows his true state, his true moral state. And my suggestion to the BSM community is, if we really talk about viability in organization and also about sustainability, we need a place, we also need this kind of image in our model. We don't have it right now. And to explain what I mean, just the background, this is a paper I'm writing together with a colleague from the Zürcher Hochschule für angewandte Wissenschaften. Again, Magnoni can't be present today, but that way I wanted to make him present, which we already presented last year at the conference. And we are now putting this together into the paper. And for me, the starting point is this: it's not theory, it's reality as a consultant. my experience was real cases. You have companies, you have organizations where the leaders, the management team really inhale the BSM. From A to Z, bottom up, really. But they face one struggle. They don't, in two cases, all those involved in the meta system, especially the owners and the MDs, they didn't recognize themselves in their own limitation. Meaning, they ignored critics, they didn't ask for feedback, and so forth, and ignored it. And I think it's a situation that is quite familiar in many organizations, especially if you have narcissists at the leader of an organization. So on the one hand side, you have organizations who are really fully aware of the VSM, but they miss out this part. And my feeling is, my sense is, one of the reasons is because we don't have a place for this kind of critical function. Yeah, that looks from a different perspective, not only of the owner and the operations, that's the task management system, but a critical function that looks on the meta system itself, how it operates. We don't have that. System 3 looks at the operation, system 4 outward, and innovation, system 5 is the policy. But no one really challenges 5, 4, 3 in their entirety, so the management team. And I think that's what's needed from a systemic perspective. And I think there are people in organizations who fulfill this function, but we don't have a place for them. And I think it's vital in a world that is evolving, complex, where you are constantly faced with different perspectives. You have to choose one, and then someone else has to remind you what you chose and what you deselected. So this was the starting point of my own intellectual journey. I presented this thought already. What it led me to was what I already presented 2 years ago, the meta from 23, VSM 2.0. My question was, VSM 50 years old, good model, excellent. One of the best models, no question, but our understanding of how organizations function has also evolved. And it was actually a customer question. So I said, okay, let's rethink it. And that's what was the outcome. And one element was that I say we need another systemic function here in the meta system. So now I turned it around. So it's not hierarchical, but it's on one plane. And I call this the system function 1M for mirror, or model of itself, where we have systemic function that mirrors how the organization, the meta system itself works. If you're interested in the model and the study description, I wrote it down. You can download from our company webpage. And what I want to discuss in greater detail is the system M function and how. And what we did in this paper is really sort of more bottom up from the works of Stafford Beer, how it fits in, or whether we need it, and how we can derive it from Stafford Beer's thinking.
Where can we find that paper? Sorry, where can we find the paper?
On my company's webpage, in the research section, there's a download function. Okay. And for me, this topic, there are 3 elements that we need to look together to answer this question regarding the final clue of viability, and that are seldom regarded together. That's the anhedonic channel. What is its function? We need to reconsider system 5, how it operates, and we also need to integrate the model of the total viable system model. I don't know whether you came across, it's a very minor detail. It's an element of system 4 and also system 5. That leads us to the conclusion that actually another system function would be the most appropriate place. And what I'm going to do is I just walk you through the various points as much time as I have left. Let's start with the algedonic channel. What is quite interesting about the algedonic channel is its origins. I mean, most of us have in mind the alarm function, pain, pleasure. But if you look at the origin where it's coming from, it's actually coming from a different angle, namely, and I think we touched on it yesterday, it comes from the learning theory. You educate Pavlov people by pain and pleasure. And the first person, to my knowledge, who coined algedonic was Ross Ashby, exactly in this learning context. And Stafford Beer incorporated this term because he faced one key challenge. And we briefly touched on it yesterday. What you see here on the left-hand side is what I would call a predecessor of the VSM in decision and control. And that's the later VSM as we know it combined system. And in the early version, what you see is you have the organization here, we have different functions, so look into the details, which is surrounded by an algedonic loop, starting in the world, in the environment, feeding to the policy section function, and they get back to the world situation. And why did he introduce this algedonic loop? His key question is, how do organizations adapt? And we touched on it briefly yesterday and this morning. I mean, in his perspective, you have two choices: either evolutionary adaptation or learning. And the problem is, he built his the VSM based on Ross Ashby homeostat. And the key challenge for him is, if you really let it occur according to a sort of blind, random evolutionary process, it takes too much time to find the right response, the right adaptation. An organization doesn't have time to run through all the mutations. That's the basic top line. So what he said is, we need a learning process, some kind of process that adjusts the probabilities in this evolutionary adaptation process. And that's done in his view. I mean, you can debate it, but that was the origin by pain and pleasure. So you, as a meta system, or the environment would tell you what works, what doesn't work, where do we feel pain and pleasure, and thereby you educate the organization which way it should evolve.
Sorry, I'm gonna share your presentation because online people are not seeing it. Okay.
Okay.
Just give me a second. Yeah, so I did.
Long story short, what I want to point out is we are thinking about the algedonic channel, about this alarm system. The origin is learning and adaptation, change, and fundamental change. He clearly says we have here the regular organization, the homeostats, and they adapt as it's fit. But if I really need to radically change, I need this algedonic loop. So actually, it's two mechanisms which are equal in terms of importance. You have the regular adaptation process and you have the learning process instilled by the algedonic loop. So contrary to how we perceive the algedonic channel today as an appendix, in the original thinking, it's very important. And I think it's still very important. Because it's about learning, it's about fundamental change, doing things differently than you did so far. Because organizations like their routine and so forth. So, and I think we need to capture this line again. So regarding the algedonic channel, sorry. I don't want to go too much into detail because there's some questions we need to discuss if we want to evolve the DSM further. It's first the channel architecture. In the current version, the algedonic channel splits off from the system 1, system 3 channel, and how Stafford Beer perceived it is you put a filter there that filters out alarm signals and then passes on to the meta system. The question for me is this the correct view? If you look at organizational reality, alarm signals can and should pass more or less from everywhere in the organization. And they shouldn't be required to pass through all the recursive levels and through, depending also again on the version, through all the metasystemic functions. So the entire organization or even the environment could be also a source of alarm. The second question is, I just cut down to the main point, is also who sets the alarm signals. In his thinking, it's the meta system that defines what is an alarm and what not. I think that's not accurate. Especially, and that's for me a fundamental problem, especially the function, the alarm function, the key of the algedonic channel is it should make the meta system aware of things, aspects that it has overlooked so far, that it hasn't grasped. Now the question is, how can you set a filter that you're not aware of? No, it's someone else who draws an attention to you. And I think that's a big question. I mean, who defines the filter? Who defines what's an alarm is? And there's no answer for it. And as I mentioned, the alarm signal, the flagging of the alarm, it could be meta system, but it could be also the operational guys down there. They often know better what's an alarm worthy is. And you have in organization, you have a filtering process. It makes it even worse. What's an alarm? A red signal traffic light, project controlling, turns up to be a green at the top level. So to circumvent, to make it really viable, actually you need a channel to the bottom of the organization, and also should be able to, everyone can raise an alarm. Secondly, so we have some issues, more details in the paper on the channel architecture. The second question is, what is the type of information? And commonly you understand it's a binary signal, pain or pleasure. My contention is that's not enough, because pain and pleasure doesn't tell you anything. You need the relevance, you need the context. Yeah? And it needs to tell you something about where you went wrong in your understanding. Yeah. In his early works, Stafford Beer had this notion incorporated that the algedonic channel is basically also one of second order. That it has a meta language regarding the organization. So it's sort of a second level reflecting how the organization operates. The question is, if this is the case, if indeed the algedonic channel is not just a binary signal or a KPI, but conveys contextual information, if it is also of second or contains second order information about how the organization is run, namely different, who is going to process that? Who is keeping the meta system aware of it? If the meta system has failed to understand it so far, there's a void. But it's interesting if you look at every channel has its system function. So for operational issues, you have a system 1, function. For combinatorial issues, you have three sub, which was added later. But again, here logic, because it's a different kind of function, information that you're processing. What's interesting to notice is the hedonic channel doesn't have its own proper systemic function. Although its type of information is different from every other kind of information channel. It needs to be, because it tells the organization something about the state of the organization that the normal, regular reporting channels don't report. That is function. But we don't have a systemic function that captures it, preserves it, reminds the meta system. But there's a void. Which leads me to the last point: who calibrates the hedonic channel? I can't find a response. And quite honestly, for those who are deep in the ESM theory, deep inside, the question of agency, subjectivity is something that is, for me, a gray area. Just to give you an example of what I mean, a quote from diagnosing the system about the hedonic channel. A special signal is always identifiable by the system. It divides the ascending signal coming from system 1 and uses its own hedonic filter to decide whether or not to alert system 5. Okay, somewhat we are familiar with it. But if you read it correctly, what does it mean? You have a signal that divides another signal, uses a filter, and decides something. I don't know a signal that does it. Yeah, it's people. Yeah. Someone with a systemic function who does it. So just to illustrate it, there's a point about agency. The key question is then, in terms of meta language, who could be responsible for preserving this second order perspective on the meta system? And the solution of Stafford was, it's what he formulated in the brain of the firm. It's sort of the next recursion level. The next recursion level has the meta view on the organization and tells the organization below what it needs to do. Like in an organization, what does it mean? You have directors, and the board would tell the directors where they are wrong. First of all, can be the case. Yeah. My experience is that the levels above, they don't have a clue of what's going on. They don't have the requisite variety. Thirdly, meta, and I think that's also what Stafford his intuition, no, again, it's a great model. My point is that I think we really need to make it more precise. Meta language, he says, hierarchies is essentially about meta languages and different order of perspective. I think which is right in a way. So I don't define hierarchies in terms of power, but in terms of second order perspectives. Every higher, second order means I have a sort of higher level where I can consider things from a greater perspective, and that's why I notice some patterns and so forth. But I think the problem he has, he confounds still, even if he divides it, but conceptually he confounds second order hierarchies and real hierarchies in organization.
That's right.
I think that doesn't work. Because the second order perspective, it can come also from the lower levels. They all have a better grasp about the organization and how it's run than higher echelon. So, and fourth, we have the principle of recursivity, which states it's not just about different levels and nesting units into one another. For me, it's about similarity across levels. It's about every system in focus, every organization at each level should have all systemic functions to become viable. Every function. So, which means if I say, okay, now returning to our question, algedonic channel, which is sort of governed by the meta-systemic view of the higher recursion level, if this is the figures, this violates the principle of recursivity. Because this level alone should be able to generate a second order perspective on its own. I shouldn't be told by someone else. I should be capable of detecting what I'm missing out or where the patterns are. It's not that the high level should tell me. Plus, you have the problem, what happens at the top level of an organization? Where do you reside? Then this second order meta-systemic perspective. So, again, from this perspective, there are many arguments which tell me, my colleague, that we need this second order perspective on the meta-systemic about how it functions, embedded here in the meta-system. So, and just a minor detail, I'm just not discussing it, but for those who are interested, you just organize in Heart of Enterprise, which takes over some of the functions of the algedonic outside of the management, but at the same level. I think that's very indicative. But returning, so for those who are interested, just to know. So if you look at the algedonic channel, the conclusion is we need some kind of, I call it systemic function, some kind of element that represents, digests, processes the meta-systemic view, the second order perspective of the meta-system. Let's turn to the meta-system itself and system 5 in particular. Because, I mean, I can run the algedonic channel this way, but there's one basic assumption behind it that it runs perfectly. And that's the contention that Stafford Beer makes. I don't know if you have read the details, but system 5 is at the end the systemic function that mops it all up. It's an original quote. Yeah, a gigantic variety sponge. Meaning, in practical terms, whatever you have in terms of problems, system 5 can solve it. Yeah? Stafford, when he said he was aware, actually. His solution was, no, you can't overwhelm system 5. The target must be correctly to leave the variety, solving of variety, residual variety to the system 3, system 4 interchange. Makes sense. If I'm the boss, I tell people, please solve it before you come to me. Yeah, that's basically. But this doesn't solve the problem, because what kind of problems does system 5 get? It gets those kind of problems that system 3 and 4 can't solve themselves. So they're really tricky ones. Yeah. So it doesn't alleviate the task of system 5. And we are all humans. Yeah? We can't process everything. So as a consequence, from a variety processing perspective, system 5 will always leave some variety unprocessed. And look, what does it mean practically? Whatever decisions a team leader, a director, a board member, or the board, or the parliament takes, there will always something left out, not considered. That's the practical. So that doesn't work. That's why we need the algedonic channel. But the algedonic channel can't solve that alone, because it alone is just a channel. It doesn't make it, it doesn't make it present. Secondly, sorry. So the closure of system 5, the variety absorption, it doesn't work completely. Which, by the way, Stafford Beer on one occasion even admits. Also from a rationality perspective, you all know from organizational theory, concept of founded rationality, we don't understand and grasp fully what's going on. So there's always something left. So irrationality, if you're wondering, it's a common feature among organizations. It has to be. And that's why we also look at organization more from a temporal perspective in terms of learning. We constantly learn. Thirdly, something that's a bit underemphasized in the DSM, that's the political dimension in an organization. It's a power game. And even System 5, and even if all people are involved, it's about power interests. Some will gain, some will lose. So again, there will be something left. And fifth and fourth, the ethical dimension. System 5 in itself has no morality. I don't know, and now I'm a heretics part. But you could map the VSM to the mafia.
That's right.
It works perfectly. It's a brilliant DSM type of organization. I mean, I don't agree with the object, but it works. Yeah, it doesn't have a moral connotation.
I think it's because the System 5 is actually supposed to be embedded in the environment. It's supposed to be drawn the values and things of the environment, not just of the entity.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, and we come to that. I mean, and for me, this was a very interesting show because it really showed me what are the ingredients in terms of viability. If we look at the BSM, we always just focus on this 5 system or 6 system functions. But that alone, I mean, this is important, but that alone doesn't constitute viability. But before I come to that, just a minor point down the road of System 5. It's monitoring the organization, but it's also the ultimate decision maker. It's the boss. And I think putting sort of the variety processing, decision making, and the power component together creates some problems. You don't have an independent judge. What we have in society, the separation of powers, it doesn't exist in the VSM organization. So holding management accountable to its action, I don't know how I can map that into the VSM. And that's important for the functioning of the algedonic channel. We said the experiences, information is filtered, dampened to please the top organization. Now, if the algedonic channel leads directly into System 5, we face the same problem. Everyone who wants to use the algedonic channel knows exactly how his or her alarm signal is going to be treated. To work correctly, the algedonic signal must end somewhere independent of the power channel, meaning independent in some kind of systemic function that is independent of the power channel, so 3, 4, 5. Okay, so this to to finish up the architectural point. Now regarding System 5 and coming back to the ethical dimension, what I find very interesting is that Stefan Beer, and I think he's absolutely right, for a functioning System 5, he says, first of all, it's not just that you have the powers and the processes, but there's more to it. This functioning System 5 needs to know itself. It knows to know what it is and what it is not, both sides. It needs to know the other side of itself. It needs this kind of mirror, what I am, what I'm not. Secondly, it needs to be aware of the infinite recursion. And that's coming back to it needs to be aware of what is its place within the wider environment. What are the actions? And ethics, if you look at that, it's exactly that. What are the consequences of what I'm doing? They can't, that's I should behave in a way that no categorizing, but sorry, I don't get the quote now. Yeah, sorry. So so, and I think that's where the ethical component comes into play. And being aware of what the results of the things are. And that's also very important. That's where the term conscience comes into play in his work. That's where he writes, essentially, what a functioning system 5 needs is a process called conscience. Now, and conscience is a very tricky point, tricky process, because it doesn't mean it's a self-dialogue. It's exposing oneself to a different perspective. Someone who is telling me, showing me the truth, like Dorian Gray's picture. Yeah. And in a person, it's more internally, but in an organization, it's socially. So it's with someone else who tells me who I am. Which again, I mean, these are just indicators. Yeah, points 3, 4, 5 alone doesn't work. Yeah, and if you think talking about ethics, ethics is the reflection about morality. The morality is defined by System 5. Who reflects about the ethicality of its morality?
I'm just interested to know whether you think that I think it is possible that the ultrasonic signal has to go outside and ping back in.
Yeah, we come to that. Okay, so this sets some questions that we need to address. In my now to this, the third element is the model of the total vibe system, which is a very interesting element, feature. I don't know how much you're aware. You have this before all the processing, yeah? And it's the place where sort of the self-awareness of an organization arises, of what we are and where we are going to, which is logic because, in a way, who I am depends on how I see myself in view of the environment, yeah? Contrast. And here you bring two streams together, outside, inside, and that's the place where the model of yourself emerges. That's System 4 is the place where this model of the total viable system emerges. Plus, which means operationally could be the operations room with all the KPIs. But in my understanding, it must be more than just the KPIs. It's what is our mission, purpose, how do we operate, and all kind of stuff. Which is actually the function, the systemic element that we're looking for. I said, we need a model that maps on the meta system in an organization. And that's actually captured in this model system. We can understand it in that way. What is interesting is this model of the total viable system. It doesn't only appear in System 4, but also in System 5. Right. System 5 also needs this kind of model of itself. Okay. Which then raises the question, why not merge them? Because you need one model. If each system function, they have their different perspectives, yeah, but ideally you need one model, one understanding. Which brings me to the conclusion. So what is the proposal? 5 minutes to go. Yeah, but I'm on time. Way to solve, just a suggestion. I would change the structure of the energy channel first, where it starts. We should say it starts in the entire operational organization. Task at the System 1 free channel can be, but this is just one subcase. Clearly, you need filters, you need awareness that you you're not allowed to raise an alarm for whatever. So it's a question of awareness. You have to train people, but in principle, it should be allowed, everyone can raise an alarm. Could we even extend to the environment? Why not? And all this information, which always contains already contextual information, second-order information. If you have a crisis, something doesn't work, it's not just about a pipe that is broken. It's always also a question who has managed it. And why have our management system failed? And it's embedded the second-order question. with the suggestion is that we funnel this in the system M function, which would be basically, we build on this model of the viable system, total viable system model. We take that, but we represent it as a separate systemic function because it is different. Different kind of information. It has a very specific systemic function towards the meta system as a sort of critical mirror. What have you overlooked? What should we do? And in organizational reality, we find that it's the people in change departments, organizational development departments, even controllers. This data, if a good controller is, he reflects sort of how you're steering your company. All these independent voices. If you look at society, we also have this kind of M function. Yeah, the free press, ideally. The arts, writers, painters, they paint a picture about our society and present us Dorian Gray's image. The NGOs, whatever. There we are with the issue of sustainability. I think this is the channel. This functions both the mirror towards the meta system. To conclude, we also could capture one important organizational function, the gesture. The gesture is, in my view, nothing else than a system M function. Same level as the meta system, the king. The king listens to him, or the queen. He's not part of the power game. He has nothing to decide. So in this regard, the system M function is not above system 5 or 4.3. It doesn't decide. Its function is at the same level as the meta system to show its mirror where it is, perhaps in a funny way. Okay, I'm done. Gave you some inspiration, certain questions, and food for thought.
Thank you very much. I'm thinking that extra N, can it be an independent advisory council? Would that work?
Could be. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the society, you have the constitutional court. It's one thing. Or if you look again, public policy. Many of the international organizations like OECD and so forth, they have this function. Their country reports are nothing else than mirrors. Yeah. But not only. It's organizations where always they have that two dimensions, formal and informal. You need both. Right.
I just want to say, unfortunately, we are late in the program and we have Marque waiting to do the final session. Just a few questions. I've always been have a different opinion from Wolfgang, as you have known.
That's what I thought.
But it is all right. I mean, that's what the DSM is such a rich theory. It is prone to all sorts of interpretations, and none of us will be able to say, I am right, I know more than Stafford said that he does, or I have read more, but I think that each one of us has the right to interpret, and we will always come with different interpretations. I will think that the way that Wolfgang is arguing about the adionic signal, I agree with most of his arguments, yeah, but I would disagree with the need to create a new function for the DSM. Stafford always said the DSM provides the sufficient and necessary conditions for viability, and it's a complete system. And he was not happy with people suggesting any system 0 or system 6 or anything like that. And we have that conversation with Wolfgang before. The way that
from Israel, he added system 3 now because this company needed it. He needs to overdevelop.
He only put system 3 starting there. No,
yeah, but he did it.
He was learning like us. And
that's what I'm
after 50 years, some of us cannot come up with clarifications and innovations. And I think that we all are in this event, there's been a lot of things. I mean, what Jan was suggesting the first day, what you are suggesting now, there are all ways of developing the DSM. I am particularly keen to continue this conversation, and perhaps tomorrow in the workshop, we can think about people who are interested in continuing this conversation about how to continue developing the original theory. This is a very important thing. I don't know of anyone that is doing this actively, and I think that Wolfgang has an important role to play. Jan has an important role to play, Jose, I mean, all of us, and many of you that are learning but are beginning to realize and to be able to identify gaps and things. I think that we together can do things. Yeah. But just to say, it's a pity that we cannot go deeply, because I wanted Wolfgang present, because I wanted to have.
And I must say, I honor it very much that you invited me, despite knowing what I would present. This takes a lot about you. Thank you.
Yes, Jose.
One observation, well, thank you very much. Since I know your work, it's not just plans.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure.
Okay.
I only have one observation, and it's an error that we, all of us, make continuously, and have been making this error, I think, during the last decades, because we are a little old, so we can count decades, years. And is that we use the algedonic channel, and we only take half of the word.
Yeah.
Algos, eros.
Yeah, that's right.
Algos, pain,
Yeah.
suffering, danger,
Yeah.
viability, we are gonna die.
Yeah.
By the way, when you make a diagnosis of a company and you see that they don't have algedonic channel, the message is a little drastic. Dear friend, you are gonna die, and it's going to be a surprise for you. Suddenly you will die. What are you saying? You don't have algedonic channel. Yeah, but forgetting that is half of the word. The other part that is ethos, pleasure. So this channel should convey also information about the good news.
Yeah.
Something that is surprising us because something is going well, and we did not expect it to go well. And this has to go through the same road to the system 5. So the system 5 says, oh my God, we have here something that we were not paying attention to it, and it's wonderful. So maybe an innovation, a new program, etc., etc. And this is something.
It's a good point. I mean, it leads also to positive leadership, and what Martin said about your strengths and your success stories. You're here where you have been here. So here we actually.
Peter Drucker
much to
recommended,
have
6 sheets, one for the bad news and other for the good news. So when you see something good, mark it and pay attention to that, because normally it's disregarded. The other observation is, I congratulate you because you insisted in something that is talked in cybernetics. First order cybernetics, second order cybernetics, third order cybernetics, etc. But stopping at second order, when you show this system 4 diagram of the diagnosis for the system, there is the model of the viable system itself. Second order cybernetics. So it's explicit.
Yeah,
it's absolutely so. The first order cybernetics, every other second order.
Absolute valid point. And I think, for instance, implementation of operations. So many organizations just focus on plain KPIs, not about the second order that needs to be embedded.
So this is
right. But my question is also, if we have system 4 and the model of total system embedded together, isn't this also too much for system 4? Although it would be for me a point to take it out and make it a distinct part.
Yeah.
And the other observation relates to the algorithmic channel itself. In your drawings, the signal starts in the operations system 1. In system 1, it starts the signal and starts to go up. The algorithmic channel also may come from the environment to system 4.
Yeah. There's one diagram. Yeah.
Okay,
right.
final comment from Jan, and I'll do a final comment, and then we have Mark Johnson. Jan.
Isn't the key in the algedonic channel sense making? And it's about seeing what you're not yet seeing.
Exactly.
So can't you anchor that in the minds of those who have the system 4 and 5 accountability. And that means that you need to teach them developmentally to make the bridge from logical thinking to dialectical thinking, because that will enable them to see what they are not yet seeing. And that's something what is missing in most leadership trajectories.
Teaching, but again, agency, who is teaching them? That's my point. Who is teaching them? It must be someone at the metasystemic level, the same language level. That's why I say we need another system, someone who's take care that I teach them. But they have to understand it.
Just a final comment supporting what Jose says. I think that there is an important distinction in language between algedonic channels and what Stafford called the algedo node. Yeah, and algedo node is the whole system of the interaction between system 3, 4, 5. And when Stafford talked about the algedonics being the ultimate clue for viability, what he explains later is that it is the algedo node that contains the responses that will guarantee viability, and the algedonic signals are just activating the algedo node. But it doesn't mean that that it is more important than the interaction system 3, 4, 5. It doesn't mean that. And I know that we disagree about that.
Let's discuss it if we can. I don't want to spare it. Have a nice evening.
Yes.